The Supreme Court upheld Obamacare, and the big question is, what comes next?
Well, one answer seems to be clear. The decision will have a major impact on this year's election. Paul Strand has this look at what comes after the court's verdict.
Some Democrats seem to feel that after the High Court's ruling, health care reform is a done deal, no change necessary. But Democrat Tom Harkin, one of the main architects of the law, says he's ready to work with Republicans to make changes here and there.
I've often said that the Affordable Care Act is not like the Ten Commandments, chiseled in stone. It's like a starter home, suitable for improvement. So I call on Republicans to join us in making sensible refinements.
Leading Republicans see it differently. They want to get rid of the law.
I've scheduled a vote for total repeal of the Obamacare bill to occur on Wednesday, July 11th.
The fact that Republicans, including Mitt Romney, are promising to repeal the law could easily fire up the president's liberal base. And what's sure to make Obamacare a huge campaign issue for conservatives is the fact that the court has now made it so clear the mandate is a tax on the American people. That's certain to energize opponents of big taxing, big government.
The law weighs in at almost $2 trillion, $800 billion of taxes. Family of four premiums up $2,200. The Affordable Care Act has not proven so affordable.
Opponents are already reminding people President Obama himself repeatedly insisted the individual mandate involved no new taxes.
But you reject that it's a tax?
I absolutely reject that notion.
And even though Obama said over and over and over again that this was not a tax, it actually is a tax, and therefore it stands.
Critics also blast the decision for freezing in place Obamacare mandates that will force millions of Americans to fund others' abortions and pay for abortion-inducing drugs, even if that's against their religion. Republican Louis Gohmert says it's as if the court stated
it's okay for them to violate people's freedom of religion and say you cannot practice this part of your religion. We have spoken, and therefore it is law.
Although up to two-thirds of the American public opposes either Obamacare or the individual mandate, it's now clear change isn't going to come from the courts. So the battle over the health care law now moves from the Supreme Court to the political arena. And the American people may well have the last word with their votes come this November. Paul Strand, CBN News, reporting from the Supreme Court.
Well, Jay Sekulow of the American Center for Law and Justice joins us now for more on this story. Jay, I have to confess I was absolutely shocked by the ruling. I just didn't understand how they could rewrite the law to make it a tax when the administration didn't argue that and didn't put that forward in their main brief.
Well, it was never really part of the oral argument at the Supreme Court either, and the fact of the matter is, Gordon, John Roberts said he's going to be an umpire. He's going to call them as he sees them, balls and strikes. He called this one a strike. I would have called it a ball, and so did the four dissenters. But the fact of the matter is, the President of the United States and his team said this was not a tax. This is not a tax. He said it over and over again. We're not talking about a tax increase. And we just witnessed yesterday the largest tax increase on the middle class in U.S. history. So despite the rhetoric from the president, and he also had his lawyer, his Solicitor General, go up to the Supreme Court and at least mention the possibility of the taxing power. It was not a focal point of the argument by any stretch of the imagination. It was barely a mention. But the fact of the matter is, John Roberts found it to be a tax. I think that decision is wrong. I think the dissenters got it right. But this puts the president may be celebrating last night, but they're going to wake up to the, I think, somber reality today that they've just now pulled one on the American people, and the ads will be coming full tilt very soon, I'm sure.
Do you view this as, I guess, a victory for judicial restraint, that the court bent over backwards to try to find the law constitutional?
Well, I mean, some have argued that. Here's what I say. Number one, you got to look at what was the main thrust of the case, that the Commerce Clause allowed Congress the authority to take over this portion of our lives, the health care portion of our lives. 5 justices of the Supreme Court, including the Chief Justice, rejected that. So they failed on the Commerce Clause. Then it was the issue of the taxing authority, which is broader and different. I think it was a real stretch to get there. So I'm not going to call it judicial restraint. I think it was rewriting the statute, and that to me is never judicial restraint. I understand the argument that some are making that it was a more restrained opinion, certainly than a Commerce Clause argument. But at the end of the day, the Obamacare legislation is now law. It is deemed constitutional by at least a majority of the court, and it's going to be up to the political process to undo it, as John Roberts said in his opinion.
Well, he also, I thought, took an unusual step and actually critiqued the law as a tax on young Americans. That the biggest load here for the tax is going to be on those who are aged, say, 20 to 35. I've found highly unusual that a sitting justice would critique the law as an undue burden on a particular demographic.
Well, he pointed out the factual reality that exists, that this is going to be a huge increase on younger people from a tax standpoint. Having said that, you know, Gordon, I think this was a real stretch for the Chief Justice to get to the position he took here. I think that when you had Justice Anthony Kennedy willing to strike the whole law and 3 other justices, this could have been the end of Obamacare. And instead what we've got now is an economic situation that could bankrupt the country. I mean, the economic consequences of Obamacare are significant. I will say that it gives Governor Romney quite a issue to run on. He raised, I think, $3.5 million, maybe $4 million yesterday alone. So while they were celebrating in the White House on one hand, I think the reality of how this race is going to shape up, it's going to be a close race, of course, but they certainly have given the Republican nominee a full issue to ride on, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. But look, I mean, to say I'm disappointed with the decision is an understatement. I don't think this was a good day for American jurisprudence.
No, I think we're going to be arguing in law schools about this decision for a long time. Let's talk about the impact. I've already heard from some business owners that their health care costs are so high that they would rather pay the penalty, the tax, if you will, than pay for health insurance. And so are we going to see health care insurance companies go down the drain and the government option take over?
Well, you know, I think that the ultimate goal here for the Obama administration originally was a single payer system, which is government health care, exactly like Great Britain. And I think that the insurance companies have got a real problem, and the economics of this are going to be so significant because employers are going to say, hey, why am I doing this? I'll just pay the penalty, $2,000 a year or whatever the penalty might be per employee, rather than spending $17,000, $18,000 or $20,000 for health care insurance and let the employee get their own health care insurance. I think that is going to be a reality of this, and that, of course, negatively impacts the insurance company, but it's not good for employees. People thinking this is some great win for working America, which, by the way, I think everybody that has a job in America is working America. I don't think that's class-based. This is some kind of panacea. I just don't see it. I think the reality is you've got a real tax now that's going to have real consequences. Taxes have consequences, and this one will have real consequences. And I think you're right, Gordon. The impact on the insurance companies, we haven't even begun to see what that's going to be like.
All right, Jay, thank you. Thanks for the analysis. Gordon. Lee Webb has the rest of our top stories from the CBN Newsroom. Lee?
Gordon, some bold moves from European leaders on the EU debt crisis at the financial summit in Brussels. The leaders agreed overnight to use the continent's bailout fund to send money directly to struggling banks. This comes after Spain requested 100 billion euros to rescue its banks. The leaders say the plan will help them develop a tighter political and budget union in the long term. Christian leaders of all backgrounds gathered in the nation's capital Thursday to talk about how to change the divisive tone in politics. The Faith and Politics Institute hosted the summit on public discourse. Many Christians believe the church has a responsibility to promote a mutual respect when it comes to differing political views.
It's part and parcel of our responsibility as faith leaders to say, look, we can disagree about really important issues without impugning the motives of our opponents and without thinking that they're evil people.
And Dr. Janice Shaw Krause of Concerned Women for America agrees. She says that people do not have to compromise their principles in order to come together in civility. And it's interesting, Gordon, that this group should meet on the day that the Supreme Court issue its ruling. They got an opportunity there yesterday to test their resolve, so to speak.
Well, I think the bigger test is what will the political campaigns and the political parties do? They've learned that negative campaigning gets votes, and so until that changes, I don't see any kind of civil discourse or civil debate happening in the public square. But it is good for the church to stand up and say, we need this, and we need to be civil in our own speech. And so, yes, we do.
Yeah, I don't think there's an American that wouldn't say we need a little more civility in the political arena.
A Virginia school district has voted to remove a 10 Commandments display from its high school. The American Civil Liberties Union claimed the display at Narrows High School was an unconstitutional endorsement of religion, and it sued the Giles County School Board on behalf of an unnamed student. A judge ordered the board and the ACLU to work out a settlement. The school board decided just to take down the display. Operation Blessing opened a major new distribution center in Grand Prairie, Texas this week. The location will store millions of pounds of donated food and other relief supplies. It will also serve as a regional headquarters for domestic disaster relief, and it will give Operation Blessing the ability to respond to disasters in that region within 24 hours. Over the next few years, more than 2 million pounds of free food and supplies per week are expected to go out to more than 120 community partners. Operation Blessing will also team with Glenn Beck's Mercury One organization to help feed hungry families across America. You can find out more about Operation Blessing by going to its website at ob.org.